I'm a simple guy, okay? And I'm not a very smart guy either.
Yeah, we've noticed that.
Nothing says the system is absolutely broken like the existence of billionaires.
So, people making other people's lives useful enough for them to willingly give up money for it on a large scale means the system is broken? What's broken about making products and services that tons of people find useful?
I mean, that level of wealth hoarding.
See, this is what I keep talking about. These economic illiterates think that rich people just keep large vaults of gold coins at Gringotts or something, and the only thing they ever do with them is fill up a swimming pool and swim around in them. No, moron, they're not hoarding, they're investing. This is where other businesses, especially small businesses, get the capital to form and expand. They're also incredibly philanthropic. The clip you opened with mentioned Bill Gates, and you're talking about him hoarding money. I guess you've never heard of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Billionaires do more to alleviate poverty all over the world than governments do. In fact, governments are generally the cause of all the poverty.
Is no different than being a king, except, well, it's under capitalism.
And you can't issue edicts forcing other people to behave the way you want them to. You can only provide products and services they want at a price they'll agree to.
Under monarchies, you had God justifying the king's power and the army violently upholding that power. And under capitalism, we have meritocracy to thank for Jeff Bezos.
Jeff Bezos started an online bookstore that grew into a company that gives everyone, even people in remote areas, access to affordable products they wouldn't otherwise be able to get at all because there's no store nearby that sells them. If you'd ever actually lived in a remote area, as opposed to New Brunswick and spending lots of time with your Theta Delta Chi buddies, you'd understand the value of that. He's also founded companies to make human spaceflight a reality, something people like you always claimed only governments could do. And he's made numerous investments in healthcare companies, developing new procedures, and making existing procedures cheaper and more readily available. So what have you done?
The police force to make sure no one questions anything.
What are you talking about? You're just making crap up now. People criticize Bezos all the time. You're doing it now. Are you seriously telling me you made this video afraid the police were going to silence you? Give me a break.
They don't deserve it. I'm not going to get into how profit is exploitation or the labor theory of value.
Good, because that's all a bunch of crap and you know it.
What I'm simply going to say is that wealth is never created in isolation.
Straw man, none of your clips were of people saying that. Wealth is created by peaceful, voluntary interactions. Whenever someone goes to Amazon and buys a product, wealth is created.
Every billionaire and millionaire created their wealth with workers who make infinitely less than they do. And we're conditioned into thinking that this is the natural order of the universe.
Are you just making up crap as you go along? Workers work there voluntarily, and they're doing that because they feel they get a better deal doing that than they could doing anything else. Wealth is created in that exchange too.
And one of the outcomes of this mentality is the justification for extreme wealth inequality.
The economic conditions of the poor and working class have been increasing. All you're doing is trying to create envy. Since you know the poor aren't worse off, you don't even try to claim that. You just claim that someone else has it better, and that affects you negatively somehow. It doesn't. Besides, wealth inequality gets worse the more socialist a country is. That's right, the very policies you favor are what make inequality worse. Inequality, both in income and wealth, get better the more economically free a country is.
We live in the richest nation on earth, the richest nation to have ever existed, and people struggle to pay their bills.
The poor have never had it better than they do today in the US. They have multiple high-def TVs, cars, refrigerators, lots of things that weren't even available to the rich 100 years ago. And even when you include things like skipped meals and square feet of living space, the poor in this country do better than even the average person in Western Europe.
And suffer when they can't get medical treatment.
It was your holy government that screwed that up, Hasan.
What good is GDP growth when you have homeless people dying on the streets in a country where there's an abundance of empty houses?
Liar! There isn't an abundance of empty houses in places like San Francisco and LA where there are large homeless populations. They have housing shortages because every time someone tries to build more housing, people like you come along and scream to the government to make them stop.
But I do think a system that allows billionaires to exist when there are parts of Alabama where people are still getting ringworm.
Better in California where they're getting typhoid and other medieval diseases.
Because they don't have access to public health.
Well, what does that have to do with ringworm? Ringworm is a fungal infection with non-human vectors. You can even just get it from the soil. People in Alabama are getting it more because the fungus grows more in warm, wet areas. Prevention has nothing to do with public health. It has to do with knowing how to keep yourself clean and avoid sharing personal items. Even the treatment for it is over the counter.
All around the world, you see tensions rising. In the absence of class consciousness or an actual alternative to capitalism,
those countries aren't capitalist, moron. They happen in countries that have passed more socialist programs like what you want.
the solution is to solve inequality, to solve famine, to solve poverty.
The only way anyone has ever found to do any of that is with capitalism. Before capitalism, even the rich had to deal with these issues, but the net results of over 2 centuries of capitalism means that you can enjoy your Rutgers education and the fruits of it while not having to worry about any of these things. Capitalism stopped starvation in this country, and what passes for poverty here is envied by the middle class elsewhere. But you have to have something to rail against, otherwise you might have to get a real job, one that actually makes people's lives better, like what Bezos did.
Technological advancements have rendered globalism an unstoppable force, so we have to adapt to it. One immediate way of doing that is through drastic wealth redistribution.
There is nothing wrong with globalism. It makes everybody's lives better. And there's nothing we need to do to adapt to it. Just enjoy the improvements it gives everybody's lives. Geez, another ignoramus whose economic knowledge hasn't caught up with David Ricardo. You and Donald Trump. 2 peas in a pod.
And that starts with banning billionaires.
Well, then where are you going to get all the investment capital to create jobs? Geez, forget Ricardo, you haven't even caught up to JB Say.
Part of the point of having a society, of having government, is to promote the general welfare. Welfare. It's literally right there in the preamble of the Constitution.
It's general welfare, you moron! What you're proposing is specific welfare. General welfare is stuff like roads that everybody drives on, or a military that protects the entire country from invaders. Taking money from some people to give to others is not general welfare because there's a segment of the population whose welfare you're reducing.
Yet for some reason, we've been propagandized into believing that the purpose of the government is to clear the path for individuals to acquire and hoard ungodly amounts of wealth.
Yes, because what you're talking about doing is the very same kind of mercantilism our founders rebelled against. They wanted the individual to be able to acquire as much wealth as people were willing to give him in exchange for products and services they liked. And they're not hoarding, so give it up!
And perhaps that's why billionaire is becoming a bad word.
It's becoming a bad word because of spoiled, narcissistic millennials like you pretending you know oh so much when you're 200 years behind on your economics.
And look, this may scare you, but a more equitable distribution of wealth is coming, whether it's by policy or pitchforks.
See? Here we see it again. He is using threats of violence to get his way, something Gates and Bezos never did. His way is violence and extortion, unlike capitalism, which is peace and freedom. Hey, thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe and keep these videos coming by donating, becoming a subscriber and getting special benefits, or even for free with airtime. And check out all the great content here, like this video selected just for you.